Hey guys, Kid here. This is the second video on my channel. Surprisingly, another Dao Chan related video. Essentially, I recently got back from NA Nationals. I had a crazy crash out on Saturday of Nats. If you guys are interested in it, I'll do like a report video after this. If you guys want, just let me know in the comments if someone posts they want to hear it about it. Then I'll post about it. But that's not what this video is mainly about. This video is going to be about sideboarding in the Dao Chan mirror. I don't think this deck is going to last much longer. They have to hit it at some point. There's just too many things in this deck. One of the things that this deck reminds me very heavily of, I think, is like Affinity and Magic. If anyone remembers when Affinity was like a top deck, it's pretty obnoxious. It's kind of how Dao Chan works with the whole fractal thing. Essentially, we have affinity towards fractals. We get payoffs for playing as many fractals. And I also think fractals, reservable fractals in general, in this game is very weird because like this game was designed in a way not to have lands, but now we're like semi-playing lands, which means like at some point in the game, especially if it goes long, I could have like 6+ fractals on the board and a 4-card hand, and every single card in my hand can be played that turn because I have so much fake influence, I would say, on the board. So there's a lot of weird things, especially in the mirror match. Once at some point, like counters become not as good, especially if one person gets too far ahead and stuff like that. But one thing that came out of like this discussion with one of my locals named Nick that I went to Nats with about how like the mirror match works and everything, because we both kind of agree at this point. I think most people understand that this deck is literally the best deck in the format. Even if you don't play it, it has like some bad matchups, and those bad matchups aren't that bad. I think like stat wise, like Seryu is technically a good matchup into Dao Chan. It gets, I would say it's like 5.5 to a 4.5 matchup, especially pre-sideboard. But outside of that, there's not necessarily any crazy matchups I think are so lopsided for Dao Chan. And you can kind of see that moving forward with like, the Nats list that all topped with Dao Chan. All of them abuse their sideboard in a way because they don't really have to sideboard anything in most matchups. They just end up playing more materialization deck cards for the most part that are just like good into certain matchups because the main deck is so figured out, so on game plan, so perfect for the most part. We end up with a deck list kind of like the one I have listed here. This is my current build. If I decide to play Artivore in the main, sometimes I play GCR in the main, depending on what I'm feeling like the local meta is going to be like. But the biggest thing here I just want to talk about is like how to sideboard into the mirror. This is something I don't think anyone talks about, and this came up, like I said, when I was at Nats with my buddy. One of the things coming from when I played Magic was that some decks would actually sideboard out their win con to a different win condition, just for like mirrors and stuff like that, because you know your opponent is going to be playing essentially the same deck you're playing, and so you can kind of abuse that in a sense. So one of the things I see no one doing and really abusing in their sideboard for games 2 and 3 into like the Dao Chan mirror is they don't really abuse the fact that you can actually sideboard out like Burst Sunders and stuff like that while punishing your opponent for playing Burst Sunders. So if you take a look here at my side deck, this is basically the side I used for NA Nats, and I think basically every mirror match I played for the regional and Nats for I like either we went to draw because of the time issues, or I won them if I remember correctly. I might have lost one or something, just to like silly, you know, the turn 2 Dao Chan kill you scenarios. But this sideboard felt like really broken because we came up with the idea, because I kept thinking about how sideboarding out part of your win con, because sometimes Versus Under is like the worst card in the deck while also being the best card in the deck, if that makes sense, because you want to see it early, but a lot of times too it's just like a dead card for long periods of time in any game state. And one of the big factors I think in the Dao Chan mirror is, one, influence really matters. Whoever has more cards at any point in the game is usually winning the game because they have more ways to interact with your opponent, especially once we've both already established a board state where we're both playing like 5 fractals already on the board. We're kind of in that limbo of like we're playing through each other's counters, we're playing through each other's like grails and stuff like that, and safeguarding. It's just trying to set up a lethal line that way. So sometimes the Dao Chan mirror can get really grindy. So one of the few things I thought that abused this a lot is that I ended up playing 3 Jianyu for the mirror, and this is also really good into other matchups too. I only bring this in the mirror, or if I think it's going to be good into something else, but this is kind of how we abuse it in the mirror, or I've been abusing it, and it's been pretty obnoxious. In the mirror as of late, I feel like there's not really any good ways for your opponent to out this card. So one of the big things is we don't have to name the card until it hits the board. So we can just put it out there, and if they counter it, they countered it. This card ate up a counter, which is good because most lists right now only play the 4 Glimmering Refusals. And if they Glimmering Refusal this away, then like that's kind of fine. We've traded that to like, you know, make it easier for us to like get through and do damage. But in the mirror, a lot of times, especially if you're forced to go second because you like won game 1 and you sideboard into this card gets really, really obnoxious. There's some points in the game, especially early on, when, you know, it requires a couple turns of setting up the fractals and stuff. So there's a lot of times where your opponent will mostly, you know, kind of go down to like a 2-card hand sometimes, or 3, keeping up hopefully some interaction. So Jianyu, you're going to play this out. You're going to name Burst Asunder. You're going to side out 2 Burst Asunders at least. In some of the games, I just sided out all 4, depending on how I felt. But the general game plan is we're going to side out 2 of our Burst Asunders to put in 3 Jianyus, and whatever else we want to take out we don't feel is working very good. Fast Cure is a good option in the mirror because sometimes Fast Cure is really annoying to deal with, play essentially to actually do anything other than just be floating memory, because we put our opponent and us will both have really, really low influence, especially once we start slamming all the fractals to the board. So Fast Cure is another good card to like cut down to cut 1 or 2 from the list. And then same thing with Lost in Thought. Lost in Thought's like one that's like sometimes I don't want to take out, but you know, it's just like it's another okay card to just kind of remove out of the deck when you're sideboarding. Or even Opulence if you feel like Opulence in the mirror isn't going to be too good, but generally I think Opulence is really busted right now. It punishes everyone who plays Quicksilver Grail. So I think 2 in the main is just phenomenal. Anyway, we move Jianyu's in, and the second we get the the green light to be able to get through to our opponent, especially if we're going second, opening this going second is busted. You name Burst Asunder because 1, you're playing less Burst Asunders than your opponent, which means they're going to have 4 bricks in their deck. Because a lot of times game states get to the point where you're just like, yeah, if you want to play Burst Asunder, you're going to have to pay 10, and if you pay 10 to try to Burst Asunder at that point, like any counter spell will stop it at that point. Or a lot of times, because their influence is so low, they just have a bunch of fractals, they can't really afford to pay 10, which means Burst Asunder is a dead card. Once Jianyu has been resolved, you're going to play your game normally. You still use your fast interaction to do damage over time. Those are the only cards you generally have to worry about in the mirror. That and Frostborn Paladins are really annoying. So those are like the 2 main things. A lot of times you will be using, once you play Jianyu onto the board, you'll be using most of your burn spells to either push for game with the fast burn spells, that is, or you'll be using it to remove your opponent's Frostborn Paladins, because those can get out of control and they're forced to protect them. If they can't protect the Frostborn Paladins, the game kind of goes into another stalemate scenario where we just both sit there and we're building up resources till one of us can win the game. If they ever let you resolve Jianyu and you name Burst Asunder, you have so much more breathing room. One of the big things is that you only have to worry about basically 8 burn spells, and then one of the biggest threats in the mirror match is Frostborn Paladin. So that's one of the big things that those are like the only threats you really have to worry about. Once you know that those are the only things you have to worry about in the mirror, then you can kind of move forward and build up towards your game plan to win that way. The next thing is whenever you draw a second Jianyu at that point, and you drew your own Burst Asunder, you can play the second Jianyu. It's a unique Fantasia, which means once it resolves, you can sack the other one and name Opulence with this one, which means now they can't, not Opulence, Glimmering Refusal. Once you name that, they can't interact with you using Burst Asunder on your turn. Obviously, if you have to make sure to get through their Safeguard Amulet and everything like that. But generally, you do that, and then you get in response Burst Asunder. Because the game state has gone so long, you'll probably have like anywhere from like 6+ fractals easy, which is like 14 burn damage right there. So if you get a little bit extra damage anywhere else, either through Paladin, that can win you the game. The next card that I think people have been sleeping on a lot too, especially in the mirror, and honestly any blue deck that can abuse this card, Water deck, can abuse this card because they have high influence. This is pretty good into the mirror. This card basically reads your opponent skips the next turn. This is just a time walk in the mirror, because what people all like, if anyone thought about this card, they're just like, okay, I do this to their board state, they just tap all their fractals down, and like it doesn't really accomplish anything. But it did accomplish something really big. You just time blocked your opponent. A lot of times in the mirror, especially if your opponent isn't seeing Zing Zhao and stuff like that to be able to draw two, don't get their pot of grades essentially, don't have really good influence. They're sitting on like a 4-card hand. Tapping them out with this card essentially says they have to skip their turn. They can't really do anything. And another thing about this too is that if you ever see 2 of these, you've basically wiped away half their board, which means they have to rebuild in response to 2 of these being played. Another big thing too is if they have different things out, like for example, like Safeguard Amulet or something like that on the board. Now they also have to like pay for that. If your opponent has opulence on the board, they have to pay for that. One of the ways I just recently won our locals invite like top. I guess I'm not sure what it's called, but it's like a league where they keep track of winners. And the top 8 people are winning over like a course of a few months gets invited to an A-man invite only tournament for a box. I used Frostnip in that mirror match to force my opponent either to literally tap everything out, or they had to start sacking certain things. So they ended up having to sack their own opulence, which turned on some of my stuff again that I don't have to pay for. And they've also had to sacrifice their own. I forgot the name of the card. I think it's Viridian Trinket or something. The one that makes it so during your turn, your opponent has to pay 2 more. They had to sack that away, which now opened up a lot more plays for me on my opponent's turn, meaning that I don't have to pay for my Glimmering Refusal against them, which is really, really big in the mirror. But anytime you see 2 of these, you kind of like almost reset them. If you ever get to play all 3, which I did at the regional, the second day at Nats, you just make them skip immediately because they can't pay for everything. They get to save like 2 things max on the board. Not only did you time walk them, you basically reset their game state, and then they have to rebuild their board again while you have full control, especially because if you have Jianyu out already, you've named Burst Asunder, you know you're not going to lose the Burst Asunder. And yeah, that's like basically like you lock your opponent out of the game, which is insane. I've been doing this now for like this past week or so, and it's been obnoxiously powerful. I think people undervalued Frostnip for sure in the mirror match. Essentially, honestly, Frostnip feels kind of only good in the mirror match. Like maybe against allies, if you draw like 2 of them, you can kind of like force them to like only keep a couple allies. I guess also into more of the tamer matchups too, it can be kind of annoying for your opponent because they have to also pay. I guess yeah, like it could be annoying, but it's probably not that annoying. Honestly, this is literally only for the mirror match. I don't know any other specific matchup I'd be like, I really want to bring Frostnip in at least. So this might be a little greedy, but it's really, really powerful. You should consider playing it. Time walking your opponent in the mirror match is insane. You put them down everything, and then you kind of clear the way for you to be able to just kind of push for game, essentially, because them tapping out so many fractals, if they're at like up to 6 fractals at that point, it's absurd. They lost so much fake influence. Now like they can maybe play 1 card, which means you can now get through their counter spell. If they do play their Glimmering Refusal against you, you can just Glimmering Refusal there, so you can go through and just burn out your opponent that way. Yeah, I think this is a sideboard strategy people aren't talking about. I don't know how often this happens in this game. I'm only kind of aware of it because I played Magic and doing certain things like this into mirror matches, like control mirrors and stuff like that. Sometimes you just bring in threats or ways to reset the game or time walk your opponent like this, just to like gain tempo advantage. Because when you're in the mirror match, one of you have to figure out very quickly, are you on the defensive plays, or are you on the offensive plays, depending on your opening? This also like just kind of sets it up so that you don't have to worry too much. Another thing about Jianyu, which is like pretty busted if you're playing aggressive with your deck, you say you opened up like a 4 fractal opener, something ridiculous, and now you're like kind of set up to win. You haven't set a Jianyu on the board, but you have 1 in hand. You can pay 2 to see if they do anything. If they don't counter this card, it comes in, it resolves. You just name Glimmering Refusal. Now their Glimmering Refusals have been turned off, and now you can Burst Asunder, do whatever you want to end the game because you don't have to worry about their interaction anymore. Because, like I said, most decks right now playing Daio Chan are only playing Glimmering Refusal as their 1 interaction spell to like gain tempo back essentially, or negate things coming into play. But yeah, that's kind of it. Let me know what you guys think of this strategy. I personally think it has been insane lately. I really like it a lot. I feel like because most people realize that the deck, like the 60 card deck, is basically perfect right at this point. Like maybe there's a couple cards you can swap back and forth or whatever you want to do. Ideally, I think you can start abusing your sideboard this way into the mirror match. It feels so good when you like John Yug name Burst Asunder. Later in the game, draw one of your 2 Burst Asunders, because you do have a lot of scrying effects in this. What is it called in this deck? I always forget. Glimpses. There we go. You have a lot of glimpses in this deck, which means you can find one of your 2 Burst Asunders, and then just like slam the second Jianyu to the board, and then get to play your own Burst Asunder against your opponent once you've already had like 6+ fractals set up on the board. It gets pretty obnoxious very, very fast. This is a strategy I think, like I said, no one is talking about, no one is doing. I think you guys should try it out in the mirror. I kind of waited to post this because I want to post this right before Worlds. I don't know if they're going to actually hit the list at all before Worlds. If they don't, I think it'll be really funny if like information like this is out there and actually catches on and people think it's really good, or I think it's as good as I think it is, and then now they're gonna have to like worry about this stuff before Worlds, which will be really funny in my opinion. But yeah, with that being said, guys, hopefully see you guys in the next video. Let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about my Nats and regional run. I literally crashed out really hard day 1 because I got like 4 draws that day, which was like I wanted to blow my brains out. So if you guys want to hear stories about that, let me know in the comments. I kind of want to stop talking about Daio Chan. It's just been a deck I've been playing so much since I started this game. Hopefully I can start talking about some other things, and hopefully we get some match videos up on this channel soon, because I'm going to try to bring my setup to locals and start recording matches and get that out there, and hopefully I can do some commentary on that, because I enjoy doing commentary a lot. I did commentary for Worlds for Bushiroad, and did a couple commentary for Nationals as well for Weiss Schwartz as well, if you guys know me from that game. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone. Later.